What's going on, Hobby Link International? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for another episode of Ben Builds the B-Wing. Today we're going to jump back into the model and we're going to go ahead and start working on the body and the engines. So let's go ahead and get started. Now last time we worked a lot on the cockpit and the capsule. We've got the LED in there, we've got some fiber optics running through into the cockpit sidewalls and consoles and all that good stuff. To be honest, I could have used even more, but this is fine. Didn't want to go overboard with it. And plus those are really hard to go ahead and navigate around different plastic parts. So I'm good with this. Now we have to go ahead though and figure out how this all goes together, and we're going to need to go ahead and start making the connections to the engines and to the power. So that's going to be a little tricky for sure. But luckily there's enough room in the neck of the B-Wing as well as the little center section there behind the engines where we should be able to go ahead and have our connections and our power all nicely tucked away inside without much hassle. So let's talk a little bit about our engines here, guys. The engines don't look all that complicated, and I don't think they're going to be that difficult to work with. We start off with the base of the engine right here. Then we have a 4-pronged light pipe made out of clear styrene that plugs into the front of that, much like this right here, just kind of fits down inside. Then we have the top covering of that, which then plugs down on top of the whole assembly and allows for those little light pipes to poke through. Now this is keyed, so you have to make sure you fit it in the right direction. But once you have it all together, you can kind of get an idea that this is going to be interesting. But of course that means we need to figure out how to light this thing. Now what I'm thinking actually is to replace the kit lighting system, which is just honestly a small little LED puck, and replace it with an actual LED. And I'm thinking a 3mm flat top LED should fit right up into this little socket, and that should be perfectly adequate to go ahead and light the 4 light pipes. I've got one LED right here, so it looks like it fits right up inside. So let's go ahead and test fit that, and let's turn it on and see how much light is actually transmitted through these little light pipes. It's not too bad. It's actually fairly bright, so that's good. Probably a lot brighter than the kit part. So we're going to go ahead and use a single LED, and we just got to hook it up to power, and then we're good to go. Now, aside from the 3 parts there to make the engine, we also have each individual burner can, and those are 4 parts, very nicely molded, I might add, and those are going to be cleaned up and then pushed down on top of each of those light pipes. They have some great detail, and the fit is very, very nice, as you would expect from Bandai. Then we can go ahead and we can install each of the inserts that go inside all the different burner cans. These parts are supposed to be painted silver. Right now they come molded in white, so whatever, it's all good. We can paint these a little bit later, but as you can see, they just press straight down into the burner can, and then we're good to go. Giving it a little bit of a light test fit here, you can see it does block out a good chunk of that light around it, but of course we're going to have to go ahead and light block and paint those individual cans so that we don't have any light bleed. So yeah, not too bad, fairly simple, and it is somewhat bright. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you're using the kit supplied lighting source, you can actually just remove the entire engine unit. You can flip on the lighting source, a little LED puck, and then you can push it right back inside the hull. Though I'm not going to be using that because I want a little bit more light and also have to wire it up to the cockpit light as well. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to go ahead and mount everything on the inside and then go from there. Of course, we do have to figure out how to get power into the B-Wing, but I think I've got that kind of figured out. But let's go ahead and jump into our first time lapse here. I've got armor plates I need to go ahead and install, clean up there for the cockpit capsule. I've got details for the main vertical hull, some preliminary wiring, and of course some light blocking. So let's get into it, guys. Let's see what we can do. Let's continue work on the B-Wing. All right, everybody, so we are back, and what I've done here is I've actually taken the light pipes, I've actually masked off the tips of each of the light pipes themselves, I've overcoated it with Steiner's white primer, and then I went ahead and overcoated those with just plain old Tamiya flat black. I don't know if this is really going to work, but my thinking is that the white might kind of help to propel the light, and the black will hopefully help to mute any sort of light leaks. Now let's go ahead and check out the wires. You can also see in the time lapse I did drill numerous holes, and my idea here is to go ahead and get this wire to go from the center of the engine all the way up and out the back so we can plug into the light source, and then that will feed the lights for the engines and also for the light for the cockpit. As you can see, we pushed this all together and the wire is nice and movable in there. It's not going to get caught on anything, so I think we're on the right track. Now I did notice while I was putting on the armor plates that there are a couple of areas that have a little bit larger of a gap between the different panels. I'm going to go ahead and minimize those by adding in a little bit of Mr. Surfacer 500. Again, I don't want to eliminate the panels completely. I just want to lessen the severity of those panel lines. So a little bit of Mr. Surfacer on there, we can just go ahead and drip it into the lines, smooth it out, let it dry, and then I think we'll be good to go ahead and give it a quick sand, and we can prime and we can paint, probably next episode. So just a little bit of this Mr. Surfacer 500, then we can move on and see how to get this capsule there into the main hull. Now moving along here, guys, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how I plan on connecting the power to my lighting sources. Luckily, there's a lot of room in the B-wing, so we can actually make all of our soldering connections up in the neck, and we can have the wires then going into the engine. One wire will go, of course, up into the cockpit, and then we have one power wire coming in from the middle of the engine section from the exterior stand. So that's kind of my idea. I think what we're going to do first here is to jump into a time lapse, and I want to start working on wiring up the engines, pre-tinning all of our leads, getting everything nicely installed. Then I need to go ahead and make sure the LED is installed up inside the right area. We go ahead and get that tacked into place, and then start on some shrink tubing, and then of course get some detail parts glued on. There's a lot of different parts and pieces to the lower hull, so if I can go ahead and get the LED installed in the engine section, we can turn our attention over to the lower hull and start going ahead and replacing some of those pieces with our special edition parts. So let's go ahead and jump back in, guys. Last time lapse of the day. Let's push on. Let's see if we can't get those engines all nicely lit up. All right, everybody, so we are back, and as you can see, the B-wing is looking pretty cool. We've got the main central hull all nicely tacked together. We've got our wires in there. Everything works, so I'm very happy about that. We've got our S-foils ready to go on as well, but I'm not going to install them just yet. I'm going to go ahead and paint everything before I go ahead and install these. Once I get those painted, though, it should be a very simple matter. Same thing with the other side. But I don't want to put those on just yet because I want to go ahead and paint everything, and I figure it's easier to paint these separately than to have to try to paint everything when it's hooked together. So that's going to be something probably next episode. But other than that, we are moving right along, and so far so good. I'm loving how this is coming together. Of course, hooking on that battery, you can see we still have the light up there in the cockpit. All the fiber optics are glowing nicely, so that's excellent. And then, of course, we have our rear lighting with our power cable, and that's looking okay. So I'm pretty happy with that. You'll notice, though, that I can angle the hull about 45 degrees either way, and maybe a little bit more if I really push it. I don't intend on really stretching that cable too much, so I think 45 degrees is just fine. Now, the connections are all actually made in the neck of the B-wing, and then we have one power cable that comes in and attaches itself to everything. I am actually running a 470 ohm resistor here on the positive lead. I don't intend on doing that because both these LEDs can run off of 3 volt with no problem. So I'll probably pull that out to get a little bit more brightness. Now the engines, of course, these are, as you notice, a bright white. So they tint a little bit more blue on the spectrum. What I want to go ahead and do is eventually I want to tint these down to the proper color. Now Bandai says it's yellow, so I'm going to go with yellow. I think that's going to be fine. I've got some clear amber paint I can go ahead and use for that, but we'll get on those maybe next episode and see if we can't get those tinted down to a correct color, or at least a closer color than that bluish white. Now I did do some customization on one single part. That's this little front nose cap. It actually fits up in here, and you're supposed to put that on before you put anything else on. I've actually cut off that locating tab right there because I don't want that to be installed just yet. I want the S-foils unattached because it slides right on and it should hold everything in place without much problem. But that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here on Ben Builds the B-Wing. Next episode, we're going to come on back, and I'm hoping to get some priming, some painting, some general cleanup done, get this onto a base, and try to figure out what to do with that. So until our next episode, guys, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, and build something cool. If you're enjoying the series, make sure to drop them by my channel. Maybe subscribe, drop a comment or two, and we'll see you back here on episode number 4 for Ben Builds the B-Wing here on HobbyLink International. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves. Happy 4th of July, and we'll see you next time. Take care.